Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Bowhunter Chronicles podcast brought to you by Tacticam. Tacticam is by far the easiest way to begin filming your hunts. Whether it's the budget-friendly solo or the 4K 5.0, Tacticam has something for everyone. Check them out at tacticam.com. This year we are also partnered with Spartan Forge. Spartan Forge uses military intelligence to track deer patterns using data from insurance companies, collared deer studies, and even social media. Spartan Forge uses the same techniques used to plan military operations to predict and pattern white-tailed deer. Spartan Forge, find, fix, finish. You can check them out at spartanforge.ai, and you can use the code BOWHUNTER to save 25%. All right, another great episode for you guys today. This is our friend Taylor Chamberlain was on the podcast, back in 2018, and we've since come to know Taylor pretty well, and you'll tell this on the podcast. I mean, there's lots of laughs. This was just kind of catching up with him, kind of reintroducing him to the listeners. But we were able to get some really good information out of Taylor. Taylor hunts 250 days a year in the suburbs of D.C. and kills a lot of deer. So he targets deer maybe in a different way than a lot of us do because he's shooting mainly does. So we talk about hunting doe bedding. We talk about hunting deer movement and how deer are using the terrain and kind of the features and things that he looks for that he's noticed in trends over the years. And then we talk a lot about gear. So, Taylor, he has the opportunity to sit, maybe as much as some guys will hunt in 10 years in a single year. So he's trying a lot of different things. He talks a little bit about the saddles. We get into the hawk saddle and all of that, and with tethered and whatnot. But we talk a lot about packs and clothing and layering and all sorts of stuff there. So there's a lot of good information in this episode, as much as we're laughing and screwing around, but I just wanted to, real quick, it seems like with our Patreon giveaways, it just keeps growing and growing and growing and growing. So I got a few more Patreons. Patreon is a crowdfunding for creators. The guys out there, they help run the show. They're invested in us, and we give back to them. Basically, at this point, it's $5 a month, 17 cents a day, to help out the show. All of the things that we do, uploading, hosting, all of our giveaways, all these things, all the stuff, trying gear, donating things, it all, costs money, and that comes straight from the Patreons, and we can't thank you enough. Isaac Shields out of Indiana, Michael Tierney, St. Joe, Michigan, and then Andrew, man, you're one of these guys, Mahalo, out of Pearson, Michigan. And then Scott Lee. Scott, I hope that you win something. I hope you win a lot of stuff. But to do so, I'm going to need you to let me know your address. I sent you a message on through Patreon, but I don't know where you're from. So I send out koozies and stickers and other swag to the guys that sign up for Patreon. Can't do that for you, Scott. So I know you're listening because you signed up. Appreciate it, but I need your address. So we do quarterly giveaways. So this quarter, Tacticam has given Tacticam 5.0 with the Turkey Reaper. And one thing I forgot to say on the last episode is what Tacticam is asking is that for the winner, if you kill something with this Tacticam, they want you to send in the footage and they will edit it up and put it on Tacticam's YouTube, put it on all of their social media as one of the winners for us. So that's pretty cool, to be on Tacticam's, all of their media campaign for something that you won. So they're giving away one of those. And then because of my relationship with Latitudes, and I hunted out of the Classic quite a bit this year, Alex said, hey, why don't we give you a classic to give away? So we're going to be giving away one of those. I've got some XOP mini sticks, so I'm just going to make it an entire saddle package. I'll get you some ropes. Not sure what I'm going to do on a platform as of right now, but it'll be some XOP mini sticks, classic saddle, and then a platform of some sort and some ropes. And then on top of that, we work with Basemap. So Basemap gives away a pro package, so you get all the features, all the layers. We're going to be ice fishing this weekend out on a lake that we're not familiar with, and you can use Basemap. They've got inland lakes. It'll show you depths. It's not going to replace a flasher or a GPS, sonar unit or anything like that, but it'll give you an idea where you're at on the lake and where the depths are, where the drop-offs are. So that's a pretty cool feature that Basemap offers. And they also offer 20% off of already great value. So if you go online and you want to sign up for Basemap, you use code Chronicles, you get 20% off. And so it makes it $24 for the entire year, which, I mean, that's hard to beat in any event. Hearing that, we're working with Spartan Forge. I was talking to Bill. Bill said, hey, I'll give away one of our memberships, and we've got some hats and swag, and we'll give that away too. And that's what Basemap is doing as well. So we're going to be giving away that. And with Spartan Forge, I was just talking with Bill. He said that he is giving there's going to be some updates to the software, and coming right about February, there's going to be a whole new section for scouting and everything like that. He's going to go over that with me. But so there are updates and changes coming for that. And then after my live on Instagram the other day, the guys from Zinger Fletchings said, hey, we'll give you some of those to give away for your Patreon giveaway. So, I mean, if you sign up for your 17 cents a day, you've got a pretty good chance at winning some great items, But if that's not for you, not a big deal. Just tell somebody about the show. Let them know. Leave us a review. That really helps us. And, let us know what we're doing good. Let us know what we can improve upon. Probably these intros. But I got so much damn stuff to give away, so I just got to give everybody their due. And this is just for this quarter. As we go throughout the year, we're giving away a bunch of other stuff, which leads me to the next thing. Even if you don't sign up for Patreon, we're giving away a bow. So we've kind of dialed it in what we're going to give away. We're not working with any companies. Our local bow shop is helping us out, but we've been doing this so long, and John's setting up these bows and everything. We just thought it fitting that we should set up a bow and give it away to one of the listeners, and we're going to do that through our YouTube page. We're going to be videoing the whole process. John's going to be kind of explaining what he's doing as far as like from getting a new bow and setting it up completely. And the bow we're going to be giving away, just because of, it's a pretty balanced bow, kind of anybody can shoot it, is the Bowtech Carbon Zion. So that's their new iteration of the Carbon Icon. Very similar bows that we're familiar with. I've been shooting the Diamond Deploy and the Carbon Knight, and it's just the next version of that, little different grip, but fits just about everybody. And then we've teamed up with HHA. They've given us one of their Tetra single pin sights to put on there, and one of their Virtus rests. And so, I mean, that's like some really high-end accessories. We still got to get some stabilizers and a quiver, but it's going to be all set up for you. And we were discussing whether we're going to do arrows or not, but I don't think, without knowing the person's draw length or whatever, that we're going to be able to build a set of arrows. We may try and throw that in there. Maybe somebody out there will say, hey, I'll give you some arrows, because that's kind of the way that this whole thing's come together. But you don't have to be a Patreon to win that. It's just going to be, you can go and sign up. I'll have that link up February 1st. So be watching for that. Watch for that on YouTube. And but the Patreons are definitely going to have precedence. So Patreons are basically going to get 5 to 10 times the entries. So if they're subscribed to our YouTube that's 10 entries if they're, they like a post or whatever, whatever we come up with. But everybody's going to have an opportunity to win this. It's not just the Patreons. And if you're left-handed, we're going to be kind of stuck on that one. So if it's one of our Patreons, we'll certainly work with you on that. If you're not one of the Patreons, we'll send you the bow, and you can horse trade it for a left-handed model or contact me. We'll do something. But that's coming up. That's the bow we're going to be giving away. It's all the stuff that we're giving away to our Patrons through this first quarter. So that'll all happen by April. So there's plenty of time to sign up for that. You can do that at bowhunterchronicles.com. Just click on the bowhunterchroniclespodcast.com. Click on the Patreon link, or patreon.com/bowhunterchroniclespodcast. But anyways, thanks for listening. Long intro, kind of a long podcast, but this one is so much information, so fun. You guys are really going to enjoy this one, because I certainly did. Thank you. Thanks for listening. All right, everybody, Adam and John back with another episode of the Bowhunter Chronicles podcast. We've got beers at the ready for this one. We were talking before the podcast a year ago today, or this weekend, whatever. This was the ATA show, and this would be the Sunday where everybody's all hungover. And our guest here never made an appearance because of the evening prior's festivities. One of our good friends, and he was on the podcast. I was looking it up like back in 2018. So we've got a lot of new listeners. They may not have heard the stories or may not be familiar with Taylor Chamberlain Hunt Urban. So how you doing, Taylor?
I'm awesome. I'm sorry that I was not able to make it out to join you guys at the ATA show. It was all my good buddy Billy's fault. Okay, he tends to bring out the brown water side of me, and once that starts, that just doesn't stop. I do remember that night whipping around. That was the first time I've ever rented. This was a Saturday night before I was unable to come meet you guys. I'd never rented one of those little like electric scooter things, whatever they're called. What are those called?
I don't know.
This electric scooter.
This electric scooter. Yeah. I know that there's the app for it or whatever. Yeah, the green deals.
Yeah, Lime. It's called Lime.
Yeah,
I think right.
Yeah.
So I'd never rented one of those. Of course, I'm the urban hunter guy, and I have no clue what the stupid thing's called. Shows you how often I Uber. But I do remember after we were leaving, like the 5th or 6th bar that I was at with Billy, he was like, "Let's just take these Lime things." And I was like, "Yeah." And then at one point when I was on it, going about 40 in the road in Indy, and the front wheels wobbling, I'm like, "This is probably a bad idea." little too much liquid courage in here, but yeah, that's why I was dead to the world the next day and had to extend my hotel stay. So
Billy had to go home early on that trip too. Something
wife was sick or kids were sick or something.
Some kind of family.
Yeah, I think his wife was sick, but he like drove up there to tell me that. Basically, hung out for a day and then turned and left. But yeah, we were there with a lot of the tethered crew, and we were having a good time for sure.
Yeah, I just remember you kept ordering like some pink, like cosmopolitan drinks. I think they were for Zach Rao.
Yeah. So anybody, most people that know me know that I thoroughly enjoy bourbon, and I'll drink bourbon until the cows come home from sunup to sundown. But our good friend Zach had not had a lot of experience at bars, and he was ordering everything on the menu kind of going down it. And he found a drink that he really liked, and the only downside to it was I think it was served with an umbrella in it and slices of fruit. And generally, as a rule of thumb, as a guy, probably shouldn't be ordering drinks that come with an umbrella and fruit in them, unless you're like
on the beach somewhere.
On a beach somewhere, and then it's kind of okay. But not that I'm one to judge, do whatever you want to do. But I'm personally not going to be the guy ordering the foo-foo drinks at the bar. Well, Zach, we love you, and it was awesome entertainment. So thanks for doing that for all of our enjoyment.
So for anybody who wasn't around 2018, or maybe they're not familiar with you other than the guy that shit his pants in a saddle,
That was me. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit of history of
Like
kind of your claim to fame?
pushing Jello through a cheese grater. Yeah. So for those of you that haven't heard that story, you're welcome. Probably for the better that you didn't. But yeah, my name's Taylor Chamberlain. I live in the suburbs of Washington D.C. I get to hunt year round with a bow, which is pretty cool. We have a majorly overpopulated whitetail herd here, and um, I get to spend anywhere from 200 to 250 plus days a year in a tree. So my wife loves that or hates that. I really don't know how that works out actually, but I'm sure she enjoys it. But it's awesome, and obviously we have unlimited tags, and I get to fill a lot of deer. So it's great. But that also kind of is how I got into hunting from a saddle. I mean, I've been doing that for God, this is my 13th year hunting from a saddle in the burbs, and um, it definitely gives you a lot of time to play with different hunting options and figure out what you like and what you don't. And I'm sure we'll get into that, but that's basically how I came to be involved with tethered and all of the hunting industry and all the good stuff that's happened since then, which is basically just drinking bourbon with you guys at ATA once a year. So
yeah, I know.
Renting Lime scooters.
So, we were fortunate enough to talk with Warren Womack recently, and he was talking about the number of deer that he's killed, and it seems like, an insurmountable number. He's like nearing 400. Have you kept a tally of like all the deer that you've killed?
I have not. That's like the number one question that I get is like, how many deer a year do you kill, or how many have you killed in your lifetime? And for me, I actually make a point to not count. And the reason that I don't count the deer that I kill is because I feel like it's kind of it kind of like discredits that deer's life, right? To where if you're just adding a notch in the crotch to every time you whack one, that like that deer only had one life to give. So if that's the first deer of the year I kill or the 150th deer of the year that I kill, like it was the same thing for that deer. So, I don't count. It's a lot. Like, I mean, um, it's I'm well over 400 for sure lifetime. Probably well past double that. So, but again, it's funny how for some people, like, and I think it's a good thing that you have a respect for the animal, and that like some people only get to harvest one deer a year. I mean, I remember talking to like one of my really good buddies, Taylor Coleman. Like he gets a tag, and he was like, dude, like I cherish every moment of that. And I mean, from blood trailing to recovery to field dressing, and for me, it's like, oh, that's just Tuesday night, like this is or on Saturday morning, that's like the fifth deer I killed this week, or maybe I shot four in one sit. It's part of the habit, it's part of the hunt for me, and that's not a good thing. Like I think that sometimes I um, lose track of how special it is to harvest an animal and put food in the freezer. So but yeah, it's kind of funny how things get skewed like that, and as far as like you get used to part of your habit or not, and kind of lose track of counting. But yeah, I purposely just I don't like to count them, but it's a lot.
Well, I mean, that's a very nice, like, thought out sentiment, but I just couldn't help but think about like being an asshole and being like, well, that's why I don't score my deer either, because whether it's like 11 inches or 160, it really doesn't matter, right?
No, it matters. I just I gave up on scoring 64-inch 12 pointers a long time ago. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. I'm just I enjoy shooting them. I could probably go through and count all the broadheads that are sitting over in a pile right now in my man cave that I was intending to sharpen months ago. They're just sitting there in various states of like covered in blood or bloody and dirty or whatever. But yeah, it's just not something I focus on a ton. I do pay a lot of attention though to. I keep records as to pretty much everything on a hunt, so I keep very detailed information, and I used to keep insanely detailed information, and as I started picking up patterns and kind of finding correlation between like successful hunts and different things, I stopped keeping detailed records on that as I kind of, I don't want to say I solved the puzzle, but I figured out a pretty decent pattern. But for the people that don't know me or don't know my backstory, I taught myself how to hunt. I don't come from a hunting family, had no exposure to hunting growing up. I got into hunting when I was in college, and I lived kind of in the mountains on the West Virginia border doing my undergrad. Really just fell in love with hunting and just spent every waking moment in the woods that I was not partying or playing golf and introducing myself to every woman in the tri-state area. So after school, I moved back to Northern Virginia, right outside of DC, which is where where I was born and raised and where my family business is. And so I really don't have an option to not live there and do the job that I want to do. So I just remember thinking like, oh, this kind of sucks. And then I got into hunting around here, where there was a big military base that was about an hour drive from my house. And I used to drive, in traffic past all these places to go hunt an area and not see a lot of deer. I'd see deer all over the side of the road and in people's yards, etc. And, long story short, I eventually got my grandmother to get me permission on a handful of her buddies' properties in and around Northern Virginia. And I went out to my first one. I shot 4 deer and was hooked. And from there, it just kind of spiraled into me, bow hunting in the suburbs. And kind of along that journey, I was really curious as to why deer are moving, where they're moving, kind of why they're moving in those locations, what weather patterns make them move, what wind direction, kind of all these pieces to the puzzle. What are they eating? Why are they eating it? And really, every time I went on a hunt, I just kept asking the question why, kind of working down that rabbit hole, taking really copious notes of it. And to this day, I used to have a giant whiteboard in my man cave, but now it's a spreadsheet. Thank God for Google, where I keep track of all the properties that I hunt on, all the neighborhoods that I hunt in, and when their trash comes, when the school bus comes, where the stops are for them if they're not in front of the house, what time the mail guy comes by, UPS guys, because all that stuff affects deer movement in the suburbs. And really, like when the landscapers come is a big deal that you want to know about. And so I started keeping track of all that along with wind direction, when I was hunting it, time of year, and figuring out why those deer were moving, and ended up getting a pretty good pattern because, like, at the end of the day, I'm pretty anal, and I like to be as efficient as possible. And like, I know it's hunting, but when I go out and hunt, I'm expecting to harvest something because I feel like I put in the work year round to get to that point. And I mean, within a 15-minute drive of my house, I have well over 1,000 trees that I can go climb. So I'm able to pick hopefully the right tree because I've put in the work, and God knows I'm running enough trail cameras and all that I should be able to find a deer. And there's no shortage of deer here. I mean, my goal is to harvest antlerless deer. Our carrying capacity in this area should be in the 10 to 12 deer per square mile number range, and they cannot even get an accurate guess based on how overpopulated deer are here. But their best guess is between 420 and 425 deer per square mile. So, I mean, dude, it's gnarly, and it's sad. You see these like emaciated deer. You see deer that are like eating bark off of a tree because they just have nothing else to eat. Lord knows you're not putting anything that's semi-palatable out in front of your house because they'll just destroy it. I mean, you should be able to pick the right tree and go find deer and put an arrow in one if you're paying attention.
So with that said, I mean, obviously you're hunting all these days a year. You got to be like the perfect candidate for evaluating equipment. I mean, like your bow, your arrow,
so
you got
exactly. That's how I got into the hunting industry, right? So I have a very analytical mind. I approach things in a very anal and analytical way, and I started doing a lot of work with broadheads. The Rage hypodermics were one of the first heads that I was testing as a prototype. And then I started working a lot with First Light, testing their clothing. And this was back in like 2013, I think, 12 or 13. And then that just kind of snowballed into more like bows, arrows. I do a ton of bow tuning, arrow tuning. I'm just like a very meticulous person, and I wish I wasn't sometimes. It's just how my brain works, that I get super down the rabbit hole on stuff and try to make everything absolutely perfect. And so to answer your question, I guess I guess that wasn't a question, but yeah, I got really into testing product and testing gear. But if you think about it, I mean, I'm able to hunt more in a year than some people do in their entire life as a weekend warrior, which is really kind of crazy to think about when you start adding up the hours that my ass is in a saddle. And then it's kind of crazy to think about how many hours I spend in somebody's backyard staring at trees waiting to grab my bow.
So I want to get in, before we get into like gear and stuff, I want to talk a little bit about that, exactly what you're saying there, like the time on stand, right? So like last time you were on, you had mentioned a book called, I believe it was Mapping Trophy Whitetails. Mm-hmm. And so that's what you had said was like kind of like the most influential, where you said earlier how you had kind of like figured out how deer use terrain and stuff like that. So, yep. We obviously talk to a lot of public land guys, and it's, that's kind of, who our core audience is. But there's a lot of guys that also have, these small acre properties, probably not small acres like what you're talking about, where it's maybe not even an acre. But, so what do you think is the most important, like, terrain feature or how deer use the woods on these, small tracts of land? I mean, what would you say to guys that are hunting a 5 acre, 10 acre piece, like that they know have deer on there, they know that they move through there, how do you use that? John, he's grabbing another beer right now, but he's saying he's got 3 or 4 acres. So
good for you, John. John, how many beers do you have total there with you is what I want to know.
I don't even know a refrigerator full, so.
Good. Well, your challenge has now been laid down. So let's see how many we can get through. If you're not drooling and mumbling into the microphone by the end of the evening, something went wrong. I don't think there's one specific terrain feature. So, mapping trophy bucks was the thing that really opened my eyes to like, holy smokes, these deer move the same in Ohio as they do in Pennsylvania and all these other places, because it never occurred to me that deer as a species are going to have the same defense mechanism inherently, ingrained in them to want to travel in the same spot. And so once I read that book, that really was like a light bulb moment. And that's when I started really seeking out the stuff that was in that book. But what was difficult for me was trying to like find anywhere that had ag, because anywhere that I've hunted in my entire life, really without going to like the Midwest on some of these like awesome trips I get to go on, there's no ag anywhere. It's just all big woods. And so trying to like figure out, okay, like where are the deer going to be in this chunk of 5,000 acres or 2,000 acres or 100 acres or whatever. I think the biggest thing that most people get wrong right out of the bat, or maybe not wrong, but the thing that they need to pay attention to is take the property lines off the map and take the lines that you're focused, that you have to color within, off the map, and just look at the map itself and think, okay, why would a deer be here or there, or where would a deer go? And from there, it's okay, well, where's the safest place to sleep? Where's the food, and how do they get between those? Or where's the food, and where are they going to bed, because that's the place to eat. And if you kind of answer the two questions of, where's the safest place they can spend the majority of their time, and where are they going to go get food and water, you will find deer. With that being said, I focus a lot on bedding and transition areas from bedding to food. But in a big wood scenario, it's really kind of hard to know where the food is unless you get lucky and stumble across some oaks. So I'm predominantly looking for points for. I love this time of year. I love like a thermal cover. So like a chunk of pine trees or holly trees in the middle of hardwoods that are kind of on like a point, or that leeward side, that will always have like 1,000 does in them. Not literally, but well, maybe here. So like I know to focus on those areas this time of year because those are loaded with deer. So, and that's the other thing is I try to think of the seasonality of why is a deer going to be somewhere. So obviously I'm not hunting white oaks in January, February. Well, not in Virginia, I guess. There might be somewhere in the world, but that could be decent. But yeah, so from there, I think the really most important thing on these smaller properties, smaller parcels, is access and pressure, and making sure that when you do go in and hunt, it's to kill something and then you're out of there. Or if you're going to hunt it, maybe you hunt it 2 or 3 days in a row and then you're out of there. The worst thing you can do is just pound the snot out of a property, and because every time you're going in, you're educating the deer. It's not possible to not have your presence be known on those tiny, tiny properties where, I mean, even if it's in the middle of the night, that deer is crossing your boot scent and they're going like, okay, a dude was here. Where'd the dude go? Why was the dude here? I mean, clearly there's danger if a random dude's walking in here that they're not used to having happen. So there's one property that I hunt where the homeowner takes all their landscaping stuff out and debris, and they just dump it in the back of their yard. I walk that exact trail in and out every time and climb a tree right on top of that landscaping heap because they can't tell the difference between me walking in there and the person. And so that allows me to be way more aggressive on that property than maybe a property that some 90-year-old lady lives at and she doesn't set foot outside of her house except for when the guy comes and mows the grass. I mean, the deer know those, like, the bubbles of interference that humans enter into. And the second that you cross that threshold, they start picking up on it. And if you do it too much, all they're going to do is they're going to relocate to a safer spot. So as far as like the number one thing, it's really bedding. So that's a really high level kind of bubble to start dissecting. But find the bedding, and then find access points that get you tight to that bedding without having the deer know that you're coming in there.
Yeah, because I mean, for me, that's one of the things is trying to figure all this stuff out, and then you pick up a 5-acre property here, or you've got 10 acres that you used to hunt over here, and it's like there's deer tracks here, but there's maybe no trees, there's maybe and everybody wants to go and put in a little food plot or do this or do that, and there's all these kind of gimmicky things or trendy things where it's like you're not putting in food plots or doing any of this stuff on these little tiny pieces, but like we talked about before on the last podcast way back when was you were doing just that, looking at like where the deer would use to move between these places and things like that. And for people listening, they might think, well, this guy's in a place where there's 400 deer per square mile. How, it's going to be easy to kill them. So, just looking at that big picture and stuff, that's why.
Yeah. And it's funny because, I would say it's harder to kill a deer in the suburbs than it is to go kill a deer in like a big woods environment. Because for me, if I want to go kill a deer in the big woods, I find that really easy because what I'm used to is looking kind of through the pinhole and only having this tiny little piece of ground to play with. On a big chunk of woods, I can just like go, okay, I think they're going to bed here, 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 and here. Then I'll go look through those areas or do something to verify that there are deer in there, and then chip away slowly and kill one. In the suburbs, it's hard because there might be like a little, like a 10 foot by 10 foot little patch of bamboo between two houses, and the deer have found it and they're living in there. Or there might be a spot that you think is like the greatest patch of holly trees that'll hold deer late season, but the neighbor lets their dog run in there and take a dump every afternoon, and so the deer haven't been in there in 20 years or 10 years. It's just, there are all these weird, like, extracurricular things that are always happening in the suburbs, especially after last weekend in DC, that are, there's just crazy crap going on all the time, and there are always people in the woods. There's nowhere that you can really be totally away from everyone. So to find these little pockets of bedding and figure out where the deer want to, either how they're going to get into that bedding or get out of that bedding in the morning or the evening and go in and kill them, is the best way I found to do it. It's the most consistent and efficient. And to your point, like, that's all I have. Like, I know where the deer is going to bed, or I can figure out where the deer is going to bed. I don't have a clue where the deer is going to go eat, or I might have an idea of where the deer is going to go eat. But if I'm sitting over that food, there's a much lower probability chance of the deer getting to the food at a time that I can shoot it and not have it be dark, or for like an evening hunt, or have it, have the deer already be there when you get there in the morning and blow them out. But like, I know the deer's got to sleep. The deer is going to spend the majority of the time that I'm able to hunt it in its bed, and I'm going to get as tight to that bedding as I can to kill it. And so that, to me, really made the most sense when I started getting into it. And bedding is always different where you go, but you can kind of start picking up on like trends or what deer like. And so there might be a 5 acre spot that I pick up, and I'm like, okay. And I look at it on an aerial map, and I'm like, all right, well, this little patch of hardwood here in the middle, like, seems like a spot that I bet deer would bed in, and I'll go hunt this, with this wind, assuming that they would come here. And maybe I don't see anything, but that sit would have had a very high probability just based on other spots. And then you're going in with a kill mentality, and you're verifying what's there and what's not there. Instead of, like, I think a lot of people go in, scout around, and maybe there'll be like a 160-inch buck there that's living there that you blow out. And if you blow him out a couple times, he's never come back. He's gone, right? And so you spent your opportunity to kill that deer without a bow in your hands, which is always kind of not what you want to do.
So, like, I don't know that we've covered this on the podcast before with anybody, but just talking about the way that you're hunting and the way that you're concentrating on bedding. Obviously you talk with Dan Infault and everything is on buck bedding and whatever. It's always evening hunts. You always assume that they're in their bed and they're going to come out the last,
closing time,
5 minutes late or whatever. So you're focusing on deer in general. And so you're just using deer patterns and deer movements. You've established that you don't necessarily know where they're feeding. However, I think it maybe will go more to your big woods experience than everyday hunting because, as you've alluded to and, it kind of stands to reason. We don't know, you don't necessarily know where they're eating, but if you only have a 30-yard walk, you can probably see the tree. And if there's no deer between the tree and and where you parked your truck,
Exactly.
you're going to say you're not necessarily going to blow them out. But as far as hunting bedding in the morning, so how early are you getting in there? And then, obviously you're just kind of, I would imagine having the wind blow into the bedding area and you're just going to catch them before they get there? Or how are you hunting bedding areas in the morning?
Yeah, so deer will always, well, I never use the word always. First off, a lot of the guys, Dan and the dudes that do all the big buck, big woods bed hunting, they're hunting specific buck beds. I hunt a lot of doe bedding because I'm trying to kill as many does as possible because my mission is to reduce the deer herd. Now, when I get a 150, 160 on camera, I'm trying to kill that deer too. They're a lot of fun to shoot those also. But my main core mission is to reduce the deer herd. So doe bedding, does will always tend to bed tight to a food source unless they don't have a food source. So I kind of break up my hunting in the suburbs into the seasons. So if you look at September through mid-October, that's really the acorn crushing time. And so it's very easy to find what acorns are dropping and where they're dropping, and then to locate bedding in relation to that food source and then set up accordingly. So when deer are entering their bed, they like to approach it from trying to kind of draw this up. They'll button hook into the bed from the side that the wind will be blowing directly into. So they're coming at it directly downwind. And the reason that they'll do that is because they're able to watch their backwind trail and make sure that if a predator cuts it or crosses it, when the predator comes up to try and kill them, they can see all this that's going on, and then they have the wind blowing over their back while they're looking downhill. So knowing that, you're able to continue and set up just on the off-wind side of that to where they'll never smell you, but then when they're walking up, you start filling tags. So that would be for a morning hunt, setting up with that kind of scenario uh, by bedding. And, what I'll do is if, let's say it's a spot I've never been to, I'll set up to where I'm closer to that button hook area, because if I'm wrong about where they button hook, I've erred on the side of caution, to where now the next morning I can chip in just a little tighter, and I know that I'm going to shoot something. um, God, it's never good to be coughing in this day and age. It's just a dry throat, guys. Don't worry, I'm good.
I was just doing the same thing. I moved my mic, so I was like, shit.
And then in the evening, you know where they're bedding kind of based on the wind. So I'm always very focused on the wind, but not from the perspective of worrying about my scent. My scent is covered as a byproduct of focusing on the wind and figuring out where the deer are and how they're using the area that I'm hunting because of the wind direction. So like there's some places where the deer aren't going to be on a certain wind because it's not advantageous for them to be there. And that's really their only defense mechanism that they have in the burbs, that they can kind of smell something from off in the distance. And that's true in the big woods areas also. So that's where I found that it's very easy to kind of transfer from one to the other. But as far as morning bed hunting, being there for that J hook up into there after they're done feeding is a very efficient way to kill deer.
So you're kind of getting downwind of the bedding.
Yeah.
Looking for that.
Yeah, I'm downwind
path.
of the exactly. I'm downwind. I'm just off that path to where the deer are coming in from the direction where they're not smelling me.
Right.
They're basically button hooking above me to where I can kill them while they're approaching that bed. Now, Greg Litzinger would tell you that that's totally wrong. He thinks or has found that the deer don't button hook all the time. Sometimes they just approach the bed, and he shoots a ton of deer in their bed. I've never gotten to the point where I can shoot them exactly in the bedding area. I like to hunt them on just outside of it. So also, and Greg is a very successful hunter and an awesome dude and really knows his stuff. I mean, I studied everything that guy would talk about for years, but I always found that the button hooking scenario was way better. And the difference there is that he is hunting bucks specifically, and I'm killing deer. And so, I can't tell you that a 5.5-year-old or 4.5-year-old buck is always going to button hook also, but I'll tell you that deer approaching their bed more often than not will button hook, and that for me has been a phenomenal way to kill them.
Yeah, it was the point I was going to kind of touch on. You just explained it a little bit, but for our listeners, for the most part, you're trying to take the deer population down, and that's by killing the does. So how many buck tags do you get a year?
I get 3 buck tags.
Okay, and then so I mean, that's why I wanted to point out, like, you're out there, you're taking out the does. When you do find a good buck, now are you? I'm going to kind of put this on like the Seek One guys, because they have great videos and all, but like those guys are out and they're videoing these monster bucks. Of course, they're down in Georgia, and it seems like, I mean, they're just focusing on that. I mean, obviously they're killing a bunch of does too, but I mean, in one of their videos, the guy is in the tent and literally, I think he's like under the deck.
I watched that one I watched that one today,
and he's worried about his scent. I mean, he's right underneath the house, like. And he's rolling around in the dirt and shit. I mean, how does that pertain to like your hunt? I mean, are you that worried about scent when you're that close to it?
No, I'm not rolling around in dirt.
Taylor's way too pretty. You've seen him.
Yeah.
You don't want to mess up his cashmere sweater? No.
Ewy, yeah.
No.
That first light doesn't do dirt.
I got a big squash match after my hunt. Um, yeah. So Lee and Drew are great dudes. They're good buddies of mine. They kill some giants.
Right.
But I mean, we have different missions. And then if I had 200-inch deer walking around, I'd probably be focused way more on antler deer. Like we just don't have like great deer here because our deer herd's so bad. I mean, the population is so jacked up, and there's just no food. And those deer in Atlanta, they have kudzu and other browse everywhere that is just everywhere. And they're really able to eat a lot of nutrients and get a lot of good food throughout the year. Our deer have none of that. I mean, they're eating leaves. Even when a tree is dropping acorns, then you have 30 deer under them, and they look like rats in the sewer. And because of that, do we get the occasional 150, 160-inch deer? Yeah. Like once in a blue moon, you'll have some show up, but they're few and far between. Now, if you wanted to kill a 120 or a 130, like come on down. We got those out the Wawa. But it's just, it's harder to find those like true urban giants and, around here. I wish it was different though. But yeah, I mean, and so kind of early on, as I really got into doing the urban hunting, like my mission was really to kill the does and to kill as many as possible and try and fix the skewed deer numbers that we have. And even more so, I mean, that was why I started putting out content and trying to help people, because I felt that if I could shave the learning curve off anybody's kind of growth into hunting and help them in a way that I didn't have the help, then that was a good thing, because we need way more people in the woods shooting deer in a ethical and responsible manner. And it's working. I mean, it's crazy how many people that are non-hunters that grew up not being exposed to hunting, they live in the city. Most of them are hipsters by like definition of it, right? And they reach out to me all the time and they're like, can you teach me how to shoot a bow or how to hunt? I'm like, hell yeah, man, like let's go. Because I mean, that's what we need in this DC area, and we need people that are passionate about it and that are ethical and responsible about it, and they're out there trying to thin the deer herd and put meat in their freezer and not just go out there and buck hunt. Because like if we had 10,000 guys in the suburbs just sitting in trees buck hunting, that doesn't do any good for the population.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, and I know that Drew and Lee kill a lot of does. I don't think they film all that stuff, but and that's the thing that's kind of a bummer is like, dude, I'll put a video on YouTube that has me shooting 4 does on it, and it'll get like 10 or 15, 20,000 views. You put a video on there of me whacking a buck in somebody's backyard and it gets like 200,000 views. It's just, people care about antlered deer, not whacking deer.
Right. They did have a pretty funny one when they had the doe competition, and whoever lost got shot with the recurve.
Yeah, and they just had their other deer doe killing competition, and I think they shot like 5 or 6 deer in the morning, and were able to take them all and donate them. So it's just, I think they have a different situation. But it's funny, I was talking to Lee actually on the phone earlier. They're coming up here to do some deer killing at the end of the week, and he was telling me the spot that he was hunting earlier. He was like, I would put that place up with any place in America as far as how overpopulated it is. And we were joking, but I was like, dude, I totally agree. I think that spot that you were hunting looked like it was just overrun with deer, like to a disgusting level.
You guys and your deer. Like we got got listeners that are like, I haven't seen a deer in 4 years, guys. How do we
God,
find them? Like
dude.
We'll send
Oh,
them down.
DC.
yeah, yeah. I'll start selling hunts. I mean, but I get that because there are spots in Virginia, down in like South Central Virginia, where you hunt all year, you won't see a deer. I was up in where was it? Northern Minnesota, like frozen tundra, like no deer. Beautiful land, beautiful country, cool experience, but I think the deer population there was like six, and one of the guys in our cabin shot one, so now then it was five. There's no chance that we're going to see anything, you know.
Well,
We're
and
going to
that's
see the back of our eyelids in the bottom of a bourbon bottle.
well, and that's one of the things I was going to ask you because, like, so for tethered and first light and all the things that you're doing, during this whole pandemic thing, like, and especially from like the outset, like everybody's all, oh, we're not going to do anything, we're not going to do anything, and then here's fucking Taylor, like, I've never been to an airport with nobody in it, and like he's just going, and so you went on a bunch of different hunts this year. How does that change your expectation? Where like, you're going to see, the presidential helicopter, a Ferrari, and probably two people, old people doing it through their window while you're sitting up there, and you're going to see deer, and now you go fly across the country, risk your life, almost die from COVID, not COVID, um, and then you go into a place where there's no deer. Like, what is your expectation on an out of state hunt versus a, Wednesday afternoon?
Yeah, well, I think that my biggest takeaway from this year and all the travel was that I need to stop anticipating the place I'm going to is flat because I just kept. It was funny. The couple of guys that I went with that were filming. By like the third place I went to, and I was like, Jesus Christ, look at those mountains. He was like, you realize everywhere we're going to has mountains, right? I was like, no, I think those fucking places are flat, man. But they're not, and so yeah, I mean, it's an honor and it's a privilege and it's a blast to be able to travel and hunt. But it's just kind of funny because anywhere I go, I miss being home hunting the burbs, and I love being there and hanging out with people in camp and having the experience. But for me, I've gone from what I thought was this terrible situation and oh my God, I have to move back to the suburbs. I'm not going to be able to hunt anymore. To then realizing like, hey, there's actually really good hunting around here, and I can have these really cool experiences just a mere matter of minutes from my house. Um, and to be able to shoot deer and then come home and like hug your kids and hang out and be a dad for the rest of the day, as opposed to just being in camp for 5 days or 7 days or whatever, is a little different, and it's fun to have that experience. But as far as my expectations, I think they change everywhere I go to, and like at the core of it, I just want to always be learning more about deer and deer hunting or how people hunt in a certain area. This year I was able to go. So this year we went to Kentucky early season. Then I was supposed to go to Wisconsin, but I ended up getting absolutely crushed with 2 weeks of a fever that was like 102 to 105, which my doctor was 100% sure it was COVID, even though all four of my COVID tests came back negative. And then finally it turned out that I had Rocky Mountain spotted fever, which if anybody has had that, it is miserable for anything unless you're trying to lose weight, because for 2 weeks I laid in bed like a little bitch, just whining, not doing anything, not helping, and from head to toe it felt like I had been beaten with a baseball bat. It was brutal. And the entire time you just lay in bed, and then you get tired of laying in bed, so you go to the couch and lay on the couch and my wife just thought I was giving everybody in the family COVID, and so missed that hunt.
And that was from ticks, right?
That was from a tick, yeah. And it was from a tick that we got in Kentucky that was so small you couldn't even see it. But we were hunting velvet deer in Kentucky on soybean fields, and you walk through waist-high soybeans, and probably had 1,000 of those things on me, and didn't even know it because you can't see them. And I think most of them wash off in the shower, but clearly I didn't get them the one or two or however many that were on there that really jacked me up. But yeah, so Kentucky is a cool experience. It was fun to hunt ag, which is something that I didn't have a ton of experience doing, and then going from there to Ohio and Ohio, Minnesota, Texas. Where we go from there, and then back to Ohio. I feel like I'm missing one. It's pretty cool, regardless. So,
did you hunt Missouri?
Oh yeah. Actually, looking at my my deer from last year in Missouri too, sitting here on my desk, which I finally got back. It's very hard to get a deer head back with a airplane involved, unless you're on your own plane, which I'm never. So yeah, that was.
But I thought you were one of those tethered guys. I've seen the tethered plane, right? I mean, you guys are just like printing money over there.
Oh yeah, I wish, but no, it's. I think that like where people get in trouble going on those hunts is to have unrealistic expectations, like flat land and short walks. But no, I think if you just kind of keep your mind open to the experience, that's when it's the best, and just like have a good time and try to learn stuff, and sometimes you'll be in camp and somebody's like, oh, I'm not shooting anything less than a 160, and it's like, all right, dude, well, good luck, man. Like, do you have any of those on camera? Oh no, okay. Well, hope one shows up. Hope you're not pissed going home empty-handed, because it's hard to make something materialize that's not there.
Right.
Yeah, what I meant by that, though, is like for you personally, because the excitement of your everyday hunt is going to be eventful. And so, like, I mean, I know John and I both have hunted Ohio where you don't fucking see anything, for a couple days, and then you'll have like the best day of your life ever hunting, as far as seeing deer or whatever. But like for you, like I said, every day is,
killed 5 today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So it's just as far as like seeing deer and like that. I would think like for us, like going out of state, with these expectations, that's why we go out of state, to try to kill something we can't kill in Michigan, not necessarily to, I guess we're not at the level where it's like, oh, we're tagged out, so we're going around to all these other states trying to, just to keep hunting. Like you're hunting, it never stops. So
yeah, and I can never be tagged out. I mean, I
Right.
guess I could theoretically tag out on bucks, but I'm pretty picky about the bucks that I'm shooting. So I mean, it's hard to leave the burbs just because it's so exciting. And there are times, it's kind of funny because I was talking about this with Lee earlier also, where I was going like, there's so many times during the season where I'm like, God, I'm so tired of this shit. Whether it be, the neighbor yelling at me or somebody screaming they're going to call the cops or whatever.
Or a cop
or
coming
the
at you.
cops showing up.
Yeah, having a cop come out with his gun pulled on you, like stuff like that is obviously a strong deterrent to hunting in the burbs, and it gets really old while you're in it, but then you've really hit the nail on the head. Like when I go out and hunt, my place in Ohio, it's like, man, this is boring, like, oh, of course there were 20 does on the food plot tonight. Like it's a food plot in the middle of the woods. Like that's why it's here, but yeah, it gets kind of boring. And I kind of miss my little setup here where like, I come home, everything goes back to its place. My truck is set up perfectly. It's just like I hunt so much. It's a routine, and it's just boom, 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 and everything is kind of everywhere that it needs to be, and it's very easy. When I go on some of these out-of-state hunts, where especially when I'm flying and I can only pack a limited number of stuff, or it's very hard to pack climbing sticks, for example. So like if I'm using spurs or bolts or if those aren't legal methods of climbing, then I have something else, or I just like shift sticks to a place, which outfitters apparently hate. And I didn't find that out until like recently. Apparently that's obnoxious to do, but I'm like, dude, you're welcome. That's preparedness. Like, that's why I mailed them. You can keep them.
Well, why don't you just have like, that's what I was going to say is like, you said everything is like in such a way and from your routine. It's like, well, I mean, judging from like some of your videos and the content that you put out, it's like, it seems like First Light sends you a box of all of your hunting clothes for every day. So you just go over, you take out your knife and you open it up, and then you put those on, and then you put those in the closet, and then the next day a box comes and you open that one, and that's for the next day's hunt. So, I mean, you just change your shipping address, right?
Well, when you soil your clothing as often as I do, it's hard to wash it and get it all out. I'm sure someday we'll find out that I was actually allergic to something. Like, oh, really? Gluten intolerance? You don't say. But no, yeah, the clothing is the easy part, and the saddle. It's scary how easy it is to pack a saddle, and we have these new 8mm ropes, which are freaking killer. It's like unbelievable how much space they save, but the climbing stick is very hard to pack regardless. And it's also hard to, I've tried to like put pool noodle foam all over it, but then it just takes up more space, but it's not sharp, but it's just very difficult. I also found out that a Predator platform will get confiscated if you try to take it in your carry-on. So anybody else out there, don't try that. TSA's got a Predator somewhere. You're welcome. The guy was probably a hunter. I was just like, oh, sweet.
He's like, I know this guy.
I've heard of these. Yeah. Sorry, sir, you can't have that. You give me that. And all the camo in your pack, too.
So with your gear and stuff, I mean, you've hunted on the saddle for 13 years. You're with First Light. My biggest thing of like, since we switched to saddle hunting is like my cold weather clothing. Like, it just, like my freaking coat or parka is like always riding up, and I'm trying to pull it through my bridge. What do you use, and what's your best setup for that?
Well, your problem is you're too skinny. See, I'm fat. So by having all my fat rolls all wadded up around the saddle, my clothing gets caught and it can't ride up on me. So it's pretty perfect that way. I'm just like a Michelin man sitting in the tree. I've found that, base layers are so important. And I get a lot of people that hit me up on Instagram or whatever, and they're like, if you could, I'm looking to buy my first pieces of First Light. What should I get? Base layers, man, because the base layers are what you wear all the time. And a lot of people skip those because they're not sexy, or they could be sexy if you wear them correctly, I guess. But they're
I
not
only
like
wear
the
the
cool...
top and the arrow, the 3/4 arrow boxers.
I have the only assless chaps made by First Light. My wife loves them. That's few people know that's how the zip off on base layers were actually started. No,
zip the ass out of them first, and
yeah,
it was too
blew
awkward.
the ass out of them with acid air. No, the base layer is the first thing that's going to work in the system, and so whether it be a First Light base layer or a Sitka one or one of the -33 or any company out there that makes a wool base layer, having wool on your skin is essential to heat. But then layering correctly on top of that to where you're not sweating when you're getting in the tree, And so quite often that will require you to, bring a jacket with you, bring your bibs with you. That's where the First Light system works so well, is being able to kind of zip down those leg pants, or the bibs, the leg zippers and the bibs, to dump heat on your way in, keep the jacket on your pack, climb up, get set. There'll be times I'll sit in the tree for like 30, 45 minutes before I've cooled off enough to put my jacket on.
John's usually shirtless for that 45 minutes.
Yeah,
John's panting.
Yeah, I'm a
with his picture of the Hulk out.
Yeah, our listeners don't need that part of it, but
I could almost smell the cocoa butter. But no, it's preventing the sweat from even starting is really crucial. And it's funny because first off, it's cool to see how much saddle hunting has taken off. It's from when I started hunting from a saddle to now. But people are always asking, whether it's with saddles or with tree stand hunting, well, how fast can you climb and set up? And like, people ask me all the time, I'm like, I have no clue. Like, because I'm not racing myself.
Or the faster you go, the more you sweat.
Yeah, I'm a big fat guy. The last thing I want to do is sweat. Like, I'm slow to everything. I get heavy breathing just thinking about
just walking that 30 yards to the stand.
Yeah, just lifting my truck tailgate is so tiring. No, but it's like, it's not a race. And oh, by the way, like, by the time you get to the top of the tree and clip in, that's the last thing you get to do for like most of the morning. So just enjoy climbing up the tree and moving before you sit still and play on Instagram for 5 hours, and then have deer blow at you from behind because you didn't see them. But I think that wearing the right layering system, no matter who makes it, or maybe it's a combination of stuff, but having a good layering system and not getting sweated up on your way in is crucial to staying warm.
That's tough when you, like, if you go on a hunt with Adam and he's the one like leading in, he likes to do like all these roundabouts and like ZZ Top.
I J-hook into the stand.
Yeah. You're a smart man. You're going to watch your bedding area, watch your back.
I just want to make sure there's nothing coming from that way.
Yeah, he does it to confuse the deer.
If you walk through it all and blow it out, then no deer will come from that direction, so you're fine.
Yeah. It confuses the hell out of the deer too. It's like, what?
Holy
shit!
This asshole doing? He's been everywhere.
Right. We'll go over this way.
So, funny story. It goes back to the gear, because I want to ask you about, I want to ask you about some of the First Light stuff specifically. But I was thinking about this before we started the podcast, and I missed it on the intro. So Taylor, I have no idea how this happens, but so Taylor, you're using it's the FHF bino harness, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm at my house one day. Bzz, my phone buzzes. I get an email from FHF saying, "Hey Taylor, all your stuff is shipped," and it's like this big like laundry list of gear that's shipped. And it's like, shipped to Taylor Chamberlain. And I'm like, what the fuck? And so like I text Taylor and he's like, I've been waiting for that email. Like, I have no idea how they got your email address, but it makes a lot more sense if we would remind the listener that. So I'm using some hunting bee sticks that I got from Taylor. And Taylor, can you just kind of go back and how you ship those sticks to me?
I have no clue. I think didn't they get shipped to my house?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think I shipped them to myself, which the post office. It's the goddamn autofill on email, because this is unfortunately not the first time this has happened to me. Because I tried to ship Ernie some arrows and shipped them to myself also. But it's great because my post office, they try to be nice to me. So they wait like 3 days before they bring them back to my porch, because I think they think I'm screwing with them. They're like, is this guy like retarded? Like, what's his deal? He just paid $12 to ship these to himself. That was good. I remember watching the tracking, and I'm like, why the fuck haven't those left the distribution facility? Like, what? Did they lose his sticks? Are you kidding me? And then it says out for delivery. I was like, oh, that's good. I pull up at my house. I'm like, oh, there's a box here.
Well, and he's like, I couldn't find a box to ship them in. I made it myself. And then when they show up at my house, he got the address right, but he shipped them to Adam Cruz. And I'm like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah. Again, auto-populate. I need to like just go into my Chrome and just delete everything and just like start over. But yeah, I have no idea. So with that FHF thing, like I was texting the owner when that order like materialized. I put nothing into a computer. So that's what makes it even odder, because I had no part in that screw up. And the fact that you of all people got the email is like bizarre to me. Where I'm like, what?
What are the odds of that?
Yeah. Well, they're much lower when I'm taken out of the equation. So like I know that it wasn't me. But I remember the stick thing was funny, because I remember coming home and I was like, oh, there's a box on my step. Like, don't you know? And I'm like, God, that's a funny looking box. It looks like somebody tried to tape it all together. And I was like, oh, that's my box.
So did you open it?
No, but I was like, did Adam send these back?
Oh.
He's like, yo, man, where are my sticks?
But no, I wanted to know about that bino harness, because that's one of the things from saddle hunting. Like I just have like abandoned the bino harness, and I've just put it in my pack just because it seems to be in the way. And so, I mean, I don't think they're paying you to wear it. So, I mean,
No, they're not.
It's something that you wear.
Cough. FHF gear. If you're listening. No,
they got my email, so.
Yeah, come on, Ranella. No, so yes, the bino harness is very difficult to pick when you're saddle hunting, because depending on your tether height or your bridge height or whatever you're running, it's very possible to kind of get it in the way. I think a lot of people like to run their bino harness like down on their belly. My belly sticks out far enough that sticking anything else on the front side of it's a bad idea. So I like to run my bino harness more on my breastbone than I do on my belly. But even then, there's some of the bigger or kind of like deeper backpack style bino harnesses are just a disaster to have there. I remember I was trying one brands and like I could not see my feet at all. And I have giant feet. I wear a size 12 shoe. Like, they're not small flippers. And I remember like climbing down the tree going like, this is the most dangerous thing I think I've ever done. Like, I have no clue where my feet are, because I have this giant goddamn pillow on the front of my chest here that's like blocking my vision. And, you know, because it was so high on my breastbone, it was literally like just, I couldn't see anything. So the FHF gear harness is one that I absolutely love, because of the fact that it holds the binos nice and tight to your chest, and it's silent when you're taking the binos in and out of it. So I really like that. I really like where their rangefinder pocket goes, and I love how it attaches. So for those of you that haven't used the FHF gear harness, there's a loop that kind of just goes over the strap like you would imagine, but then there's another loop that runs horizontal that goes through the buckle, so the pouch actually can't slide around. And so I know that if I'm watching a deer and I need to reach in and grab my rangefinder, it is always exactly where it's been for the last 2,000 sits. And I can range a deer and drop it back, no problem. So yeah, the FHF gear harness is really, really, really essential for saddle hunting, I think. And also the location of where you're running it is really important as well.
Now, is that one of the ones that opens forward, or does it still open up?
It opens up. Their flap is pretty short, so it doesn't get in the way. But the other harness that I really like is the marsupial harness.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the name of that company, and I like that because it opens down and it stays there with the magnet, and the magnet holds it down, and you can just pull your binos up and out of it. And I find that to be really helpful, like late season, especially, to not be making a bunch of noise or having a bunch of kind of movement in the tree. Yeah, the FHF gear one has been my go-to for years, and absolutely love it.
And so I kind of think what John was talking about with the First Light stuff isn't it the Sanctuary that has the zip pockets, or is it the Solitude that kind of have the upper, like on your breastbone type pockets that go into the bibs in that system?
So the Sanctuary has the kangaroo pocket, it's the Solitude. Sorry, She Sells Sanctuary was on when I was putting my daughter to bed earlier. I got Sanctuary stuck in my head. Sanctuary. Yeah, so the Solitude bibs and jacket have the kangaroo pocket that comes over on your breastbone, and I feel like those are ideal for saddle hunting because I really like where that pocket sits, and the fact that I can like just put my hands up in there. I'll often kind of put my cell phone in the zipper pocket that's up in there and keep it nice and warm so the battery doesn't die, and so I'm not staring at it playing with it. And yeah, I mean that pouch kind of system really, really, really works well. And it keeps it so warm because it's so much closer to your core body heat as well.
And so I was just looking at it today. Is it the Catalyst vest that has the two pockets? Is that similar pockets where you can put those in, or are they oriented back the other way?
I'd have to look. So it's difficult.
Come on, you're the First Light guy. You got you have more First Light than anybody on the planet.
Yeah, but I'm 2 years down the road, so I'm very fortunate that I get to test a lot of the newer stuff and provide a lot of feedback. So there's a lot of stuff that I've like tinkered with that might not have made the cut, or maybe it did. But I actually don't think I have any production pieces here. I know that sounds really bad, but it's not
Mr.
intended.
Big Shot First Light guy.
I don't measure deer under 170.
Yeah.
But no, I don't even have the Catalyst vest, so I can't answer that question. I don't know.
All right. Well, you've got my address. Just look under Adam Cruz on your phone. Call them at First Light.
Yeah. I think your address looks really similar to mine.
But that was one of the things, because I mean, obviously that's one of the hardest things. Is like it's like the fucking like what the fuck is the movie with Will Ferrell? Like, what do I do with my hands? Like, that's the whole saddle hunting thing. Like,
well, so what I really like to do for people that are interested in the First Light gear, I would pay attention as new items come down the line, because there's a lot of really cool stuff coming out soon.
Well, I mean, there is no ATA show. I mean, what do you got for us, Mr. Insider?
I know nothing. Hey, man, I'm from DC. There are a lot of tight lips around here. For the thing that I found to be most helpful for your hands I like to take a hand warmer, like a hand muff, and I like to run it as tight as possible, like literally double it, triple it over on itself to where the loop is only 8 inches, 10 inches. And then once I'm in the tree, I'll clip that over my bridge, and then I'll flip it up on top of the bridge. And so what I'll do is I'll put my arms in there to where they're riding basically right on the bridge itself, and they're just held there. And then when a deer comes in, you can pull your hands out and you can either flip it around if you want or just keep it there. But that's been the most helpful thing that I found uh, as far as like keeping your hands warm kind of thing.
Okay.
Does that make sense as
Yeah.
to like how? Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what I was hoping on here. We'd have the, new First Light gear, new tethered gear, the new tethered saddle, all of those things, right? That you're working on.
Well, I just don't know how. I don't know how the First Light gear could get any better than it currently is now since the new pattern's out, because that pattern is killer. Literally, I've killed tons of deer in that thing. It's amazing the depth that that pattern has. I think a lot of people, when they see it in person, will be really blown away with it. And I don't know how you could get the Phantom any better. I mean, we joke about it with tethered, but the Phantom saddle is about as comfortable as you can get. So no need for new stuff. It's all you need.
Well,
It's already there.
I'm going to break your heart right now, and you've already broken mine, because I was waiting for the new tethered saddle to come out, and I was so confident that there was going to be another one. I traded my Phantom for this new saddle that just came out, and I'm super excited about getting it. And this is no bullshit. I traded my Phantom for a Hawk saddle kit. And it was,
dude.
One of the reasons is the guy was online and he was all bummed out that he had a Hawk saddle kit, and it was, a lot of the things were failing, and not necessarily on his, but some of the stuff online. And we did the video on that Hawk platform, and then literally the next day, some guy's like, I used this 5 times and it broke. But I was like, I want to try one, but I do not want to spend the money to purchase one. And then, honestly, I didn't want the guy to sell it to somebody else to think that this is like really what saddle hunting is. So I made him a deal on it, but I do have a Hawk saddle inbound just to like check out. Have you messed with one at all?
I have not.
Yeah,
I appreciate you taking one for the team, for all of the saddle hunter community out there, to keep one off the streets.
Right. But I mean, that's the thing. So like, we just talk with Sean at Trophy Line, and I talk to Alex from Latitudes all the time, and nobody's looking at these things. And I think, there is such a fanboy mentality out there. It's like, everybody wants to just say like, oh, it's ours is the best, and this and that. And I'm not saying that against you or anybody else. I mean, I truly think that all of the people that are like really in the industry of putting out saddles have the best interest of the end line consumer in mind. But I don't think that Hawk does. And I think that, somebody has to like look at one and like compare it to all of the others in a like unbiased way to say like, this is why you should not do this, right?
Yeah, it's kind of scary. I mean, so saddle hunting has come a long way in God, just the last couple of years, but even in 10 years or so. But I think a lot of people have gotten too comfortable, way too comfortable, suspended 25 plus feet off the ground with stuff that they really maybe haven't checked out at ground level or kind of done a simple litmus test with. And, the stuff that I've seen online about the Hawk saddle is kind of scary, but, I haven't really gotten my hands on one and played with one, but I'd like to think that, everybody out there that's putting a saddle out would, care about the person that's using it and, put the time and effort into making it correctly and making sure that, like, God, the manufacturing process had some checks and balances to it. But I mean, for sure, the stuff that your guys' review on the platform was scary, and to look at the stuff that's getting posted online is really scary. I saw a guy that his tree tether did not have the guts of the rope in it. It was just the sheath of the rope. And thank God at least he was like, hey, this seems off, and didn't clip into it. But, I mean, if you clip into that, you're toast.
Well, it's like if you're looking at, like, what they're... I mean, and I've seen them, I believe, on Amazon as well, not manufactured by Hawk, but I'm assuming it's coming out of the same production facility. Like, their quote-unquote rope man or ascender or whatever looks like just a pot metal piece of shit. Like a...
Well, not even... I mean, not even that. Like, when we started... We didn't do this in the review, but, like, when we were sitting there...
Yeah,
like,
this was after we had already finished our filming.
I was flipping that platform over, and I'm like, well, fuck, it's missing a whole weld, which is, I mean, completely unacceptable. I mean, a weld is missing on this thing. And so it only had the top part of one of the cross members welded instead of the bottom as well. It should be welded all four sides, but they're just doing top and bottom and completely missed it. It's like, how does this frickin' pass?
Yeah, that's scary, man. I mean, that's really scary. I hope that, I really hope that gets shut down before somebody gets hurt, because unfortunately, the way that things are going, it's inevitable that somebody's going to get hurt by it before they kind of look into it. But you shouldn't be able to just make a budget saddle with the highest margins possible and just throw caution to the wind. I mean, that doesn't work.
Right. And I mean, God forbid somebody says they look at the tethered setup and they look at the price, or they look at the trophy line setup and look at the price for the, everything for ropes, platform, like whatever. And they say, well, for half the price, I can get the Hawk, and they have the entire setup. So the platform fails, and then the rope doesn't have a core, and they just, all safety is out the window at that point. So
yeah, well, and I mean that's terrifying, and I mean I'm sure that other companies are the same way, but like a tether, like we don't care if you hunt from a tethered saddle or somebody else's saddle. Like our entire goal is to promote and grow saddle hunting as a whole. And I mean, that came from us all being like the weird nerds in the back chat room of saddlehunter.com, being like the 0.001% of guys that weren't hunting from a tree stand. And like to us, it's just super cool that saddle hunting has become mainstream. And, if we can just put the word out there about how cool and how effective and efficient and safe it is to hunt from a saddle, like, then we're happy. And our goal is to make the highest and best stuff possible. And I mean, that's how we came out with the Mantis originally, and then with the Phantom, and kind of continued to push the envelope and just ask, well, what would make this cooler? What would make this better? How could we improve on all of this, and then do it? But like, never once was it, how can we increase our profit margin, and
how cheap can we get this thing made?
Yeah, how can we get a higher return per item and screw safety?
Not to mention completely copy. I mean,
yeah, well,
but
yeah,
whole nother.
It looks pretty similar.
Yeah. That's unfortunate, because I was texting you like when we got one, and we're like, it's like, did you guys like strike a deal and license this thing? It's like, nope, not at all. And you probably can't say like fuck those guys or anything like that for whatever your lawyers say to do, but like, it's just in complete bad taste, And like one of the arguments that, like I said, there's so much fanboy or brand hate type stuff out there. Like people will say, well, tethered stuff is made in China too. And it's like, well, it isn't because they want to make more money or they want to make something cheaply. It's like, I believe that they want to make sure that they have stuff for you because the demand is so high and making things in the U.S. is both expensive and difficult to put on any sort of timeline. And so it's like, I don't know. It's such a strange place, like for us, because I feel like we're friends with everybody, like in that make saddles, or like it's not just like, oh well, everybody's shit sucks except for tethered or whoever. But there's very few people out there that are objective. Like everything is so like, if they're gonna hate on it, like they're gonna hate on it regardless. It doesn't matter. Like it's tough.
I think you see a lot of that in every industry, though. I mean, whether it be like some guys are like, "Oh, that guy drives a Ford, like he can't come to my house," and you're like, "Yeah, okay, cool Chevy." I mean, like whatever, And I think at the end of the day, or between people with like Glock versus Sig, or Glock versus 1911, and people get entrenched in a camp. And often it's because they decided to spend their money with, one brand because of one reason, and they're loyal to that brand, and that's great for them. Like I got no problem with that. For me, I look for, when I'm spending my money on something, I'm going to look for the best product at the time. And if I'm car shopping, that might be a Ford, that might be a Toyota, that might be a Chevy, it might be a Dodge. I mean, it's whoever's making the best, most innovative product is going to get my money. And I own plenty of 1911s and plenty of Glocks and plenty of Remingtons. And, stuff gets made overseas, and there's product that gets made overseas that is incredibly high quality. There's product that gets made overseas that's crap. There's the same that's true in America. There's stuff that's really well made, and there's stuff that's crap, and there's everything in between. And here at the end of the day, it's all about the company that's ordering it, and the quality controlling it, and what they're going to spend on having it made, and what they're going to do to QC it, and basically what they're willing to accept and sell. And I would wish that the people that are like diving into saddle hunting would take the time to kind of check out the saddles themselves, and kind of play around with them. And that's what's hard to do, is because you can't go to a store and be like, oh, here's the trophy line, here's the Latitude, here's the tethered one. It's just, you kind of research on Facebook, research on forums, and you make a buying decision and go with it. But I just think a lot of people, when they spend their money, they want to like feel loyal to whatever camp they decided to put their flag into. And it is funny because all of us are friends, we'll pick up the phone and call the guys at Latitude, or talk to the guys at Trophy Line, or have them call us. I mean, we're all in this to promote saddle hunting and make great products. And, we're big fans of a rising tide raises all ships. And, if we can help other people in the industry out, that's great. There's plenty of room to grow, and we just want to continue pushing each other to elevate saddle hunting and keep continuing to make it the best it can be.
Yeah, but fuck Hawk, right?
Pretty brutal what Hawk did, yeah. So, I don't pick up the phone and call them, but I also don't speak Chinese, so hard to. I'm surprised Hawk released that stuff, though, knowing like the liability potential of it is strange. I mean, dude, I saw a guy put a post on Saddle Hunter where his platform snapped, at the bolt. The thing snapped off. I mean, like, can you imagine standing on a platform? And granted, like, okay, some tethered platforms are broken. Some people cam them over hard and snap or whatever. Like, you call us with a snapped platform, like, I assure you, we are scrambling. And not only are we scrambling to get you a new one right now, but like, we want that one back because we want to look at it and figure out what happened and analyze the crap out of it and engineer one that won't do that ever. But it's just funny, like, what do you think Hawk's response was to that? Like, did they get anybody on the phone? Like,
No.
I can't even imagine being on a platform and having it go pop and falling down. I mean, you think me shitting my pants without the platform breaking was bad? That would be, I'd probably scream out in the woods. You'd hear me where you guys live. It'd be the weird screeching owl of platform breakage land. Like, it would be freaking terrifying.
So I'm glad that when we were talking about that and using those analogies and like where you spend your money, because I was like, and you use cars and guns, because I'm like, where the fuck does this guy spend money in the hunting industry? Because he's got a house full of things that they just keep showing up.
Bio harnesses.
Every day his Instagram, which is Urban Bowman, is oh, look what came today. Oh, look at this, more packages. But I was thinking about it. I don't think you have like a pack, and so that's one of the things that John has been like. It's been just like a bitch for. It's John's
funny. It's funny you mentioned that. By the way, Adam sounds like my wife. Like, oh, there's a package here again. Oh, there's another package here. God damn it! Get these packages off the porch.
You need to talk to the mail guy and say, leave them.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, leave these at the mail house. Packs are hard, man, because I feel like packs. Well, let's rewind. So, I buy a lot of packs. I have a closet full of packs. I actually gave away like 18 or 19 packs. I probably shipped them all to myself. They'll probably show up at my house soon.
What are these packs, Taylor? From Taylor? What the fuck, Taylor?
Yeah. Phil, look, to me, from me. Oh, hey, look.
Say your wife's like, what are you doing?
Present.
What are you doing?
Yeah. Joke's on you, wife.
I was having delivery withdrawals.
Yeah, I just wanted to make you feel left out for all the shoes that you get. No, I think packs are like they're really like a personal thing, or it's something that, you know, everybody has such a specific use for how they want to pack and carry certain items, and there aren't a lot of similarities, obviously, I guess, or apparently, because it's really hard to find one that works. So I've been all the way down the Mystery Ranch rabbit hole. The Pop-Up 28 is good. I like the way that you can fold the bag off and pack the sticks on it. I didn't like how long it took to like unclip the clips, grab my sticks, grab my platform, put it back on, and I felt like the bag was just kind of like, you know, flopping around there. I just wasn't a big fan of that. The Treehouse was a really good pack, but I felt like the inside of the Mystery Ranch Treehouse really didn't have a ton of space. For me, like, I'm not trying to pack that much stuff. I'm walking 40 yards. All I need is to put 4 sticks on the outside, a platform. I need a camera arm and a base, and then my camera. And then I have like a I almost said headband, a headlamp, headband, my high heels.
That's for your pickleball match later.
Yeah, my pickleball. That's what we call it when I'm up in the tree all alone. Yeah, so like, this is my filming gear. Like, I'm really not trying to carry that much stuff. I don't know why I have like a mountaineering pack. Is what I've had to like get down this hole to. You know, like, what is going on here? So the Mystery Ranches, they worked okay, but I felt like there was more to be desired. Then I went to the Eberly stock, and so I got the X2 and the Bandit. And I was using the X2. I liked the X2, but then again, I felt like there was just way too many pockets and clip-ons and stuff. I actually am looking at one right now. Is like, I just took all my stuff out of it because I had it with me in Ohio because I thought it was the right pack, and I was like, F this thing after the second hunt with it. So I've been going back. I've been using the Bandit pack from Everly stock this year, and that thing is really close to perfect. It's not all the way there. What I like about that pack is the fact that it's kind of like no BS. I can just put my camera in there and my camera gear, and then on the outside, I'm able to put a bunch of straps and bags there to carry stuff how I want it. So packs are weird though. If you're not filming, I feel like it'd be much easier. Just like
a whole lot easier.
I like what Zach Farrenbaugh is doing with his. He just has like the Badlands Monster, and then he took the Predator pack, and he's put that up on the high part of the backpack. I mean, that would work great.
Yeah,
if you can have
but
a camera.
to be fair, he hasn't climbed a tree in a year and a half. So, I mean,
Very
not only
true.
that, he's got a cameraman with him too. So,
right.
You don't see what that cameraman's got a mountaineering pack with all the fucking
Yeah. Well, that's what my cameraman Hunter was carrying, was just full of snacks for me this year. He's like,
oh, I saw it laid
snack
out
dish.
in like were you like in a shooting shack or something with Star Crunch and like just like a laid out buffet?
At one point, Hunter when he showed up in camp in Ohio, it looked like he robbed 3 convenience stores candy aisles. I was like, dude, are you trying to get diabetes on this trip? Like, are we gonna die? Like, what's going on? I'm a polite person, obviously, from my yuppie city, so like I'm not gonna say no to Butterfinger bites or Snicker bites or hot pancakes or biscuits and gravy, whatever he's brought to the stand. I'm like, well, yeah, okay, I'll help you eat that. Okay.
Don't bring those tomorrow. I'd like these.
Yeah. Really fun to watch your blood sugar on the Garmin watch just explode through the ceiling. I'm like, oh, look, you literally just saw on my watch right here, I got diabetes. That was the time that it happened. But yeah, so as far as packs go, it's very difficult, I think, to find like a good pack. And like it depends. Some people don't wear their saddle in. So thank God apparently that I do, because all 40 yards of that, I don't have to worry about anything happening to my saddle. But I can't imagine, then having to pull a saddle out of a backpack at the base of the tree. I would go nuts.
yeah. See,
What packs are you guys running?
well, I have my Exo Mountain Gear, Western pack, but I take the bag off and I just use the frame. And so then I have a Badlands fanny pack. It's not the one with the shoulder. It's not the Monster. I can't remember. It's an old one.
Oh, it's like the pop-up or bucket or something. It's a bucket.
It's like a bucket. But so that has like my little essentials, my headlamp and grunt calls, that kind of stuff. And then I put my camera in there, all my cameras in there. And then, so I strap that onto the bottom of my pack, the frame. And then I put my Predator on top of that. And then I put my bag of Wild Edge steps like on top of that. And then I don't wear my saddle in. I roll that up and put that, and then strap that. And then I strap on my coat and camera arm. And so it's a freaking yard sale. So when I get out to my tree, thank God I watched your video on the freaking bow rope, wrap around your hand, because otherwise I'd have to get out there 45 minutes early to untangle the rat's nest.
Because you got 3 bow
jig your
ropes.
bow up.
Yeah, because I use 3 ropes, because I can't carry all the shit up. I don't carry it in my pack. I just get to the bottom of my tree, I lay it all out, hook it all up, and then climb up. And there was a couple hunts this year where actually, like at one point, my bow, because I don't have enough Wild Edge steps, so then I was carrying a couple sticks also. Because to get up, I want to get up, 25 feet in 5.
Are you using an aider?
I made an aider out of one of my old freaking lineman ropes, but I was like, you know what? I don't want to be hanging upside down from this son of a bitch. So I grab a couple sticks, and at one point I had all the bow ropes, like it was in the dark. I'm freaking trying to pull them up, and they got caught in the stick. And then my bow is stuck in the fucking sticks, and I'm like, I can't let it down, and I can't pull it up. I'm like, because if I let it down, something's gonna fucking break. Like, I don't know what's stuck, if it's my sight bracket or if my stabilizer. And I'm like, oh my god. So I probably rattled in a buck doing that.
Yeah, the old robot metal buck.
Right. Like the dumbass spike horn. I'm like, whoa, what's that? But so no, I've been telling Adam, like, dude, I'm about ready to go buy a freaking sewing machine and start making my own freaking pack. I mean, literally, it's that frustrating. Like, I want to be able to fit everything in a certain way. That's like what you were saying is, I want it, very specific. Like, I have my Alaskan guide gear, bino harness, and it stays kind of close to my chest, but it's still like will get caught up in my bridge a little bit. So I don't, I like wearing it in because if I'm walking in, sneaking in, and a deer pops up, or I can pull up my binos or my range finders. I have that clipped into the harness itself, and so I want to be ready like that. But then when I get out there, I take that off and I climb up the tree with it. But then when I get up there, I take it off and then I hang that on my sys strap above my fanny pack. But I'd like to have a pack that I can just climb up, throw the bino in it on the side, and then, camera gear. It just, it's very specific.
Well, I think my setup would give you anxiety because, so I started off I hunted all last year with the Badlands Super Day, and then I bought one of the trophy line packs, which I really liked. I wish it was a little bit more robust, but I tried it out. I did a video on it, and I was all set to hunt with it. And then a local guy was like, "Hey, I got this Mystery Ranch Pop-Up 28. Like, does anybody want to have a trophy line that they want to trade?" And I was like, "Fuck, that's an expensive pack. Like, I'd like to try one out." And like, just like you, I don't like to put my sticks perpendicular to my body because they're wider than my shoulders, so like they get caught and shit. And I mean, I did that last year in Missouri, and like it was just a pain in the ass. So I don't like to put them that way. And that pack, unless you add like compression straps or something, you can't really put them vertically. And I just didn't feel like, because there's only like the 2 pouches and then you can put stuff behind it. It didn't have enough places for all my stuff. So I was like, I can't use this. So I still had my Super Day pack. So I just went back to that. I gave John the Mystery Ranch pack and he's like, fuck this thing. He's like, I can't use it. It doesn't do anything for me. And my pack, I mean, I really like that pack and like the way that it works out. I wish it had like a little bit more like segmentation. Like I really want somewhere for just the camera to go that's maybe like a little padded or something like that. But like I go out there and I hunt, and then when I get done, it's like in the dark or whatever. I'm like, fuck this. And I just throw everything in it because it's just got those 2 big pouches. And then the next hunt is like, where did I stuff that or this or whatever? And then, so I'm in the dark. I mean, like, there's been multiple times where I've walked out like in like a beanie type hat, like a half a mile or more with, looking at my phone with a clip on your hat light in my mouth because I'm holding my bow in one hand. I'm holding my phone trying to figure out where I'm going. And I don't have my headlamp, but I have my headlamp. It's just in one of the pouches or pockets or in my jacket from yesterday or whatever. So like when you talk about like everything needs its place, like, yeah, it needs its place. It would be nice. I can see why that would be helpful, but it's just not in like my, like, it's not in my like game plan.
You're correct. That would give me anxiety. I have like one of my buddies, Nick's. He's always joking with me because he's like, Jesus Christ, like you have to organize your truck bed. I'm like, dude, I'm OCD. Like everything goes in a certain place. It's in it's in a certain layering system based on how it comes out of a tub or whatever. I just got a decked system for my truck, and I'm sure that's going to be like perfectly layered lasagna that I'll be going nuts about. But yeah, I mean, like everything. Campbell Cameras used to make a backpack that was, or Badlands made one for Campbell. And it was like I forget what they called it, but I really regret not buying one because it had a special pouch to put a camera in that was padded, and then it was like all divided up where you could put lenses and other stuff. And I feel like that pack would be ideal. I've messed around with buying some of these like drop-in inserts because like I don't really have anything in my pack. Like I have a headlamp, I have my hiss strap, I have a grunt tube, like some shears, and then a kill kit. Like really not that much stuff. Oh, and a backup release because I have forgotten my release a couple times. There's no worse feeling than going to clip that in the tree after you've spent 30 minutes being silent and not having anything to clip to your bow, and then arguing with yourself for 30 minutes if you could shoot fingers or not.
Oh, shit.
So Badlands still has one called the Capture, but I mean, obviously you're not walking as far as like I would say
Anyone?
99% of I was gonna say us, but I was gonna say 99% of the population. But so I don't think that pack has the hip belt, and I think for at least for me for carrying sticks in, like I think that's the most important feature. Like if a pack could have everything perfect, but if it doesn't have a hip belt, like I don't believe it can carry sticks efficiently.
So. Yeah, and that's the problem with that Bandit by Everly Stock, because that does not have a hip pack or a hip belt, and that's like a problem with it. Now, granted, I'm only carrying sticks for 40 yards, and I mean, I hunted the crap out of that bag this year in Ohio and other places, and it was okay, but a backpack works best when your weight is on your hips. So, not ideal there.
Well, I just find it like flapping around, like, when you're, maybe I walk faster than you, but you're
probably.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Adam thinks it's a fucking race. Like, I mean,
but when
you got to do zigzags like you do, I mean, you got to make up some time somewhere.
Yeah.
Walking 2 miles to cover one.
Yeah.
I run like a rabbit. I do a little circle here, and I go over here, and then do a circle there, go over here, do a circle. But yeah, I mean, that's what a lot of the questions that I get is about packs and stuff. And I remembered you posting, like, if anybody's a new hunter or whatever, and you showed like a mountain of packs, like, get a hold of me. So,
yeah,
I mean, knowing, what and the amount of time, like I said, that you get to test gear, and obviously, not necessarily, having a pack sponsor, you can have some, not that your other stuff is biased, but, easier to digest.
Yeah,
opinion.
No, I'm with you. I mean, there's some stuff that I can't give a really. I mean, I will never give anything other than my 100% unbiased review. But if you ask me, like, oh, how did you like this other saddle? Well, I haven't tried it, or how'd you like, have you shot the new Hoyt? No, I haven't. But at the same time, like, I will always give my 100% honest, like, straightforward review. But there's some things that I just haven't tried because I haven't needed to or haven't been able to. But for packs, I've pretty much tried them all. I think that Badlands Super Day pack is a great pack. I used that for years. I still have one that's my like go-to trail camera pack. It seems to have a really good, pocket system, but I agree it would be really nice if you had a padded pocket or the ability to put your camera in a little more securely, regardless of what camera you're running. The Bandit pack is really good. I like that one, but yeah, I mean, there's been a literal mountain of backpacks that I gave away that were just never made the cut. Some of them I got, and I was like, oh yeah, this won't work, and just never used it because I knew it wouldn't work. That was unbelievable. I put that post up. I think it was on my Instagram story. I was like, yeah, if anybody's a new hunter, like, send me why you need a backpack and I'll send you one. All right. And then I went upstairs and I was doing something with my daughter and like hanging out. And I didn't look at my phone for like an hour. And I went back and looked at my phone and I had like thousands of messages already. And I was like, oh, this is weird. And by the time it was all said and done, I got over 7,500 messages from people that wanted a free backpack. Unbelievable. And people were like, I'll take that like Kafaru one. I'm like, hey dude, you don't get to pick the pack that I'm sending you, okay? If you give me a good reason. And there were some really funny reasons as to why people needed a pack. I hope they were true, but actually for some people I hope they weren't true. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing how much people like free stuff, that's for sure.
I mean,
me included.
You did get all those First Light boxes. I mean, I'm just saying.
Exactly. There's nothing in those. That's like they just put one sticker in like a giant box and then send it to me. They just like to mess with me.
All right, so before we let you go, I have to ask you, I mean, and I need a definitive, like, by-the-minute answer. When are the tethered one sticks going to be available for the population?
Soon, my dears. I am not at liberty to share that information.
Come on.
I'm sworn by this legal piece of paper called an NDA.
So have another sip of bourbon.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah, it'll be on my Twitter. My Twitter is unlocked, so I can still tweet. No, they should be here in the next what is it, January? They'll be here, I think, in the next month. Would be my best guess.
And is there any sort of like order? I'm going to say like hierarchy, but that doesn't like make sense, I guess.
Well, I'm going to order the
taste.
first 5,000 sets, and then I'm going to sell them on the black market.
Well, I thought you were just going to say that you were going to give them away because your DMs were down.
Yeah. I need more attention. I'm feeling lonely. No, it's all. There's going to be an email that goes out. I mean, my understanding, and this could all change. I believe the current plan is that we're going to email out to all the people that are on the waiting list prior to just turning them on, and those people get the first bite at the apple, and then the rest of the orders get to be filled. But there's going to be plenty of inventory for anybody who wants them.
Well, so. That's what I was going to ask you. Is it an inventory issue? Like you just want to make sure that you guys have enough, or is it, getting them like maybe quality control? Like you guys are like, well, I mean, I know Hawk doesn't finish their welds. They didn't do any testing, but like, we got to like
weld. If people want welds, that costs extra.
If we only do like 3/4 of the welds,
the one stick doesn't have any welds on it. It's all
machine.
It's all it's really pretty cool. But
you ship them without those roll pins. It'll be all right.
Yeah. No, you have to assemble the thing. If you want them put together, that costs extra. No, they come fully assembled, unlike other sticks. But yeah, no,
mine came fully assembled. They just took a long time to get here.
And they were wrapped in stealth strip.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're welcome. Really cool stealth strip too. And not to mention, they have the custom Urban Bowman reflective paint in the steps going up and down.
Yeah, I saw that post and I looked at mine and I was like, oh yeah, it's probably in the video.
And apparently they're extra sharp too. Like you could shave with them because he's already wrecked a bow rope. So
no bowstring.
Oh, bowstring.
Did you clip a bowstring with them?
I just nicked a couple strands. My daughter's been cut with them. I've been cut with them.
They're
Like,
really sharp. I did not sharpen those at all.
No,
Uh,
we just talked to Dan about it. He's like, yeah, you must have one of the first sets because we had to take
we,
care of that
yeah, we
issue.
had to redo the standoffs. He's like, I need to send you some other ones.
do they? Well, no. Those are those have the little like 45-degree bevel on them. But yeah, I think that there's another version.
Yeah.
I had one of the versions that didn't have the grade 8 bolts on one that I had. So I had two sets of those B sticks. I bought the ones that you have, then sold them because I was buying climbing spurs, and I was like, if I have any sticks in my garage, I will not teach myself how to use these spurs. I was fully committed to the spurs for a solid 2 weeks, and I fell using the spurs. I had double gaff out, and I was like, fuck these things. These things are terrifying. I need to buy more B sticks. And so bought more B sticks. They came in. I was using them, and I was climbing up a tree, and I was like, it was in the dark, and I was using my carry as you go aider, and I had it on the stick, and I was like, why is my foot so close to the tree? And I moved my headlamp and looked, and the stick was flat against the tree. And I was like, that looks weird. And I realized that the bolt had bent almost a full 90 degrees, and it was like the standoff was bending. And I was like, holy shit. And so I just like slowly eased down and stood on the stick, and obviously the bolt didn't break and everything's fine, but that was a little terrifying. So I found out that the bolts that I had were like grade 3 bolts, not grade 8 bolts, so I had to swap those out. That was a little terrifying, but yeah, it's good to check your equipment before you climb with it, but that won't be an issue with the one sticks. Yeah, we're just making sure that we have enough inventory for everybody that wants it, because what we don't want to have happen is have people that want a product that they can't get.
Yeah, that is unfortunate.
Because we've been there before, and we don't want to go back there. We were caught, really by surprise with the demand for the Mantis, and it took us a long time to get out of the hole on order number wise, and we didn't want to do that again. And that's why we did what we did with the Phantom, and kind of are now even trying to evolve that even more. So,
And no, granted, I know him, and I talk to him often. I haven't talked to him recently, but it's fun to talk to Andrew Blair online, because if you have any sort of question or anything about your order, like, they're on it. I mean, like, you can't post a bad thing about like Tethered anything as far as customer service or like shipping times or anything without him being on there like, your order was sent on this day. It's been 4 hours and 87 minutes since like you sent your order. Like, we sent you the email. Check your spam folder. Like, it's hilarious to like actually talk with him about all of the like emails and things coming back and forth and the people online. Like, it's fun.
Blair's the man, and he has this amazing ability to be on top of about a billion things at once. And he's a great dude, and it's unreal how on the ball he is. Where like, because I'm looking at one thing, and then I'm like, squirrel, and then I'm looking at the other thing, and squirrel, I'm back to the other thing. Next thing you know, I ship sticks to myself. Blair is the opposite. He's got like a billion things. He's like the maestro. He's got a billion things going on. He knows where they're all going. My brain would just catch on fire and explode if I tried to do that. I mean, I can put an insane amount of attention into something, but everything else in the peripherals is, might as well be shipped to myself at the wayside, because it's not getting focused on.
Oh, so
before I'm going to cut Adam off, because since this is a bow hunting, the Bowhunter Chronicles, and we haven't even really
Because you've
talked
had
about
enough beers.
we haven't even really talked about your bow. So what bow are you shooting? And I mean,
I'm shooting the Matthews V3, shooting the 31 in 30 and 30 and a half inch draw length. It's 65 pounds tuned to 68, and it is smoking some carbon. I'm shooting the day 6 arrows, which are sweet. They're about 550 grains, all said and done. And this bow's shooting them at about 278 feet per second, which is pretty impressive for a 68-pound bow, and 550 grains a no-no.
oh, yeah. What stabilizers are you shooting?
I'm shooting the Matthews stabilizers. I got a 10-inch bar on the front.
Okay.
That's it. No back bar.
So how are you? I mean, I hear guys saying, awesome. I mean, completely best bow. And then I hear some guys talking about there's a little bit of maybe torque possible in the wrist. What are your thoughts on that?
It is as dead in hand as anything I've ever shot. If anybody has any bow torque on any bow, the first thing to do is check the timing. Like I remember, it was probably like 5 or 6 years ago now, but there were some people that were like, I think it was the E32 from Elite, and it was either people absolutely loved it or they were like, this bow sucks. And what it turned out was, it was like the timing. If you had one that was timed correctly, it was the greatest bow you ever shot. And if you had one that the timing was off on, it just really felt bad. I haven't shot a Matthews V3. I mean, I've tuned a pretty good pile of them, probably about a dozen or so now. Every one of them felt awesome. So I haven't had one that hasn't felt good, but that's probably because, I mean, I'm timing everything before I even draw it myself in the hand. So, yeah, I would just guess that if anybody is complaining about the draw or the shot, it's probably timing. But it's a killer bow, man. It's like very, very, very steady at full draw, which is pretty cool. I mean, even the 27 is very steady at full draw, which is surprising considering how long my draw length is. I shouldn't be able to shoot a bow that short axle to axle.
Right. Have you tried out the Atlas at all?
I have not.
All right, 'cause that one right there, the Atlas looked like man, for my draw length, I can get away with shooting a 30 and a half, but most of the time I'm shooting a 31-inch draw, and I mean with a 7-inch brace light and all that.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. I mean, so the Matthews all run about a half-inch long. So most of the bows that I'm shooting for Matthews are called out a half-inch short of what they actually are, and then when I'm tuning it, I make sure that the draw length is absolutely perfect. But I think a lot of people that aren't like diehard archers also don't realize that, unless you check the actual measurement of your draw length, there's a decent chance that what you're drawing is not what's printed on the bottom of the cam. And I mean, that's just a byproduct of how the bow works, right? Like if your strings aren't the right length, it's going to throw off the draw. Whether they're stretched or maybe they're just a twist long or short from the factory or whatever.
Yeah, then you throw D-loops on them and everything.
Yeah, exactly. I'll never forget, I was walking through a Cabela's, where was this? It was in I think it was in Missouri. We were walking through the Cabela's and there's some kid buying a bow. It's like the day before opening bow season. And I overheard this, but the mom was like, so you don't have any that are in his draw length? And the bow tech was like, no, but it's fine. I can just put like a 2-inch D-loop on there and it'll work. And I looked over at her and I just gave her this look and I was like, I shook my head like,
no.
like do not do that. And she saw me and she looked at me and was like, okay, we're going to pass, you know, and I was like, geez, like, come on, man. That kid so easily could have walked out of there with like a 26-inch draw bow with a 2-inch D loop on it and thought it was normal, like an old school overdraw.
Right. Oh man.
Yeah, we're going through complete bow overhaul here.
Yeah, you guys shooting the PSEs still? I mean, when I saw you last year, that was when all the NTN bows came out. You guys were pumped on them, right?
Yeah, I was pumped. I've got one hanging here. I got it in 60-pound limbs and then built it with 70-pound limbs. Went out west, spent 3 weeks flinging arrows at animals and wounding them, and pretty much lost all my confidence in that bow, which I don't know if it was me or the bow, but I ended up pulling out my old Hoyt, and it was just like spot on again. So I'm switching up. I mean, it's a good bow and all, but I can't shoot it. I mean,
when you took those limbs off and put them back on, did you like bare shaft tune it and have any issues with that?
I bare shaft tuned it. The thing is, I was getting a right tear. Freaking shim the cams over. End up, for one, when I took it apart, I think I went over this on one of our podcasts, but when I pulled it apart, these bows have 1/4-inch axles. So it's one of the largest axles I've seen in bows.
Mm-hmm.
And I pulled it apart, and I was switching limbs, and I couldn't get the axle back through the cam, and so I was like twisting the axle, and all of a sudden I'm like, the whole cam is wobbling. I'm like, what the hell? Did I pop out one of the bearings in the cams? What? So I pulled it out, and I laid the axle on the workbench and spun it, and I could see it wobble. So I chucked it up in my drill press, took out the dial indicator, and it was 60 thousandths out, bent. I'm like,
wow.
How do you, for one, unless I dry fired that bow, which I didn't, there's no way I could bend that freaking 1/4-inch axle. You know what I'm saying? So that right there was like, holy shit. So I got a hold of, my buddy Mitch, and he got a set of axles and shim kits, all that, overnighted, and rebuilt it. And I mean, I spent hours just trying to get it to where I could get it to bare shaft tune, and it was close. But then I'd start shooting my broadheads, and I was still getting this weird wobble. And so I switched. I was shooting my nocturnal lighted Nox, and I know they have some flex in it, so I went back to I'm shooting my Easton Axis. I ended up going with 300, a 300 spine, and I'm shooting 31-inch draw lengths, 70 pounds. It ends up being I think it's 29 3/4-inch arrow. So with 50 grains of brass up front, 100 grain head, and they end up being right around like what yours are, 550, 560. And my broadheads were hitting like 2-3 inches right.
Jeez.
Shooting a fixed, and it was like before, like I got them all built, and I was like, all right, I'm on. It's shooting pretty good, and then I was just shooting my broadheads, just tuning, just sighting it in for my broadheads then, and got out west and ended up having a shot at an antelope at 35 yards, and then I watched the arrow just do like a huge corkscrew, and part of that was crawling around out in that heat and everything. Ended up, I don't know if this ever happened to you, but my D loop, I tie in, do my tied in Nox and then tie my D loop. So it's pretty wide D loop, if you look at it. And what happened was, I don't know if it was because of the heat out there or whatever, my string must have, you could lose a little wax or whatever, it heated up, but it squeezed the center serving in between that. It crushed it basically. So I knocked an arrow, and then I went to pull an arrow off, and it actually ripped the freaking knock out of the arrow. And these are brand new arrows, so it's not like they're, I do wax them a little bit, So it was so tight. I'm like, well, what the hell? So I started looking. I'm like, well, shit. So I got to my buddy's place out there in Montana, cut the D loop off, and of course I didn't have my serving jig or anything to serve it, put a new center serving on it. So I just had to deal with it. So I ended up I brought my nocturnals, which have a little bit wider throat, and so it didn't it didn't get as much knock pinch or whatever, or it fit a little better, and so they were flying decent. At that point, what I should have done is just pulled out the Hoyt, but I really wanted to, I wanted to kill something with that PSE, and I did. I shot a mule deer, but same thing, a shot, and the mule deer was a 35-yard shot. She was standing like quartering away. It was like a perfect, and I was like completely calm at that shot. I was just filling the tag for meat, and shot, and I watched the arrow just kind of and hit her back, right behind the last rib, so it wasn't. It killed her. She was dead. I walked down and ended up going down to the truck, come back. We drove back up the mountain, walked down and found her right away. But that was just like taking the freaking confidence. It was just draining it out of me. And,
yeah, absolutely.
And then end up shooting a freaking nice bull. And it was, at that point, I was just like so wound up and pulled the trigger and shot him high in the back. Didn't even he ended up running off and bugling, but yeah.
Dude, at least you got into some animals. I mean, it sounds like between the antelope, mule deer, and big old elk, that's pretty awesome. But yeah, there's nothing worse than having a bow that is like troublesome or not doing what it's supposed to be doing. I had an elite bow years ago that I got dipped in First Light camouflage, and I got it back, and it was all assembled, and I could not get it to tune. And I mean, dude, that was a solid limb bow, but I swapped the limbs on it. I swapped the shims. Everything I did, I could not get it to tune. And eventually, I realized that the bearing was not fully seated in the cam.
No.
And I just pressed it in there like another thousandth of an inch, and all of a sudden it was perfect and shooting bullet holes. But it's amazing how, like, I mean, if the axle's off a little, I mean, obviously, or the bearing or whatever, but a lot of people don't think to look at that. But that's surprising that your axle was bent, and it was still troublesome.
Yeah, and I mean, and I did the same. When I got back home, I'm like, I'm gonna go through this whole bow. I ended up building a whole new string for it. I ended up pulling it all apart, went through, checked the limb pockets. I did end up swapping the limbs, left to right, just for the torque. And the one thing, it's like, the one thing about this bow, it's got that quad track where, the split cable system, so it's supposed to pull it parallel, whatever. But they still have the old style shims in that axle, which are a pain in the ass. So you got one like a wide shim, and then you got two thin ones. Well, the thin ones are like about the same size as the freaking slot for your clip. So when you're going to slide, when you're putting the cam back in and trying to shim this without ripping the bow all the way apart, it ends up sliding into the slot as you're pushing the axle through,
Yeah, it drops down. It's like super hard to get that.
And it's obviously it's such a tight. You're in tight quarters, and I'm trying to push it in there and deal with it. It's just a pain in the ass. Completely. I can do it, no problem. But you look at that compared to like a Matthews with the top hat system. You take the screw off, slide it out, pull the cam out of the way, pop out the top hat, switch them, whatever, put it back in. I mean, it's just like bam, bam, like no problem. It's not.
The Matthews top hat system is roll tide simple. It is so easy.
Yeah, and it's like thinking about I'm gonna shim. Like I got two Matthews hanging up right here right now. The one my buddy won from the Bowman's Club, and I got it. It's I think it's a Verdix, and like, well, I'm shooting it through the paper, checking it, whatever. Maybe I'll swap it out, check out the top cam, whatever, top hats. No, I'm not even going to freaking think about it. Takes 2 seconds. Now and he went and bought the PSE just like he ended up getting, he didn't get the NTN, but he just got the standard 33 Evo. And we went through all the same shit with that bow when I was getting it. And he was like, the draw cycle is great and it shoots good, like until you start really trying to dial it in. And he's like, man, it's just like I have to be so precise on my grip and everything. And
see that, but that's the part that is hard to deal with, is the fact that, like, okay, if I'm sitting punching foam at 40 yards, like off my deck, yeah, I have good form.
right.
But if I'm twisted up in a tree and there's a 140-inch deer, or even if I'm twisted up in a tree and there's a doe at 20 yards,
Exactly.
like, I mean, it's very hard to not have, any bit of torque or pressure, or just not, like, just have your grip jacked up.
Right. You want the most forgiving setup, and
absolutely.
And that's, I'm like, and that was one of the things with that bow. It's like 7-inch brace height, 33 inches axle to axle. And I'm like, it's just not, once, when it got down to the nuts and bolts, it's not forgiving enough for me. So
are you back to the Hoyt, or are you on a new mission for something else?
Oh, I'm shooting my 2018 RX1 yet right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so looking at the Matthews, I did get a chance to shoot the new Bowtex before they're released. I mean, so I guess we're gonna have to see where everything goes. But last year when we were at ATA, I was like dead set on the Matthews. Like, after shooting the Matthews the year before, I'm like, that VXR is, a tenth of, percentage better than, I think it was the Verdix or whatever. I'm like, that's going to be my bow. And I went back and forth shooting, and then I was like, well, the adjustable draw length, but I wasn't even thinking about, like, the switch weight technology. Fuck, that's freaking off for me, because I'm always dicking around. I'm like, I got 80-pound limbs, 60-pound limbs, 70-pound limbs. I got a freaking drawer full of them. I'm always dicking around with them. How nice is it just to swap out a freaking module?
It's pretty nice.
So
I've been messing around with the Garmin bow sight lately, and it's real nice to have the different arrow profiles on it too. So, like, if you're shooting 3D, you can shoot the real light arrow and have a setup for that. And if you're shooting your hunting arrow, you can just switch over to the hunting arrow and keep bouncing around. It's pretty cool.
So yeah, we'll see. We got some debating to do yet, but it's gonna be an interesting year. We'll just put it that way.
That's good. Interesting is fun. It can't get more interesting than last year.
Right.
Well, I think that's the thing, and it's funny because you guys are talking about that grip and stuff. It's like, before, when we were just sitting here waiting to do the podcast, I'm like, because we were having the same conversation, I'm like, how the fuck were you shooting that bow at 105, 111 yards and popping balloons, and you can't shoot anything. You can't shoot a coyote at 20 yards. And he's like, well, I was really focused on my form and all my stuff, and
when I'm shooting 100 yards, I'm completely 100% focused on everything. It's all about form. Looking down at the target, basically, I'm just seeing a target. But the rest of it, the other 99% of my focus is all on what I'm doing, And when you're out in the woods and all the shit's hitting the fan, it's like, yeah, you can think you're going to do that, but when you pull back on a bull for the first time ever, and he's freaking just bugled and chasing a freaking cow up the mountain at you, and holy shit, that's like, you can try to, You can try to go through all the motions, but I'm gonna tell you right now, of all the shooting I do, I just lost my shit, and the bow just wasn't forgiving enough, you know. I mean, it was me, but it didn't help. So
Yeah, I mean I don't know, it's easy to focus on your form when all you're doing is, punching a balloon at whatever yardage or hitting a target.
right,
Um, when you're focused on killing a critter, I mean, form goes out the window. It's like, can I slip an arrow through there? Or like,
right.
is he going to bust me? Did he see me move? It's whole different story.
Yeah, it's I was definitely pretty frustrated. And end up my brother also, he bought the same bow. After I was, my brother and I have kind of a rough relationship. We don't do a whole lot of talking anything. And I was surprised, like when I got back from ATA, he was asked me about the bow and everything. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get one. And he ended up getting one at the same time. He ended up ordering the knock on, elevate, rest, and everything. And I built it for him. And matter of fact, he was in Colorado at the time I was headed out to Montana, and he called me up. He's like, dude, I can't get this bow to shoot broadheads, man. And got back, and he ended up, that bow was for sale, and he bought a new prime,
Really?
Yeah.
So was that a common problem with those?
I just, from my experience, I don't know. I mean, I tried looking it up. I'm like, man, you know what? I want to just, if I could get a hold of frickin' Dudley and talk to him, like, hey. And I even noticed, like, Dudley has always shot like a bare grip. Like, in matter of fact, when he first had that bow, when it first came out, he didn't have a grip on it. He just had the bare, riser. And then I noticed, like, on the bow that he shot for Total Archery Challenge and all that, and in his other videos, that he had put the rubber PSE grip back on it. So I'm wondering if he was having some kind of grip issues or, as well. But who knows? I mean,
Sounds like it.
So,
yeah.
But I mean, there's other guys out there that shoot it great. I mean, I know Travis, he's shooting one, and it just, I don't know, maybe it's just my ability to tune it.
Or maybe they got shitty form and it just kind of offsets. I mean,
just shooting expandable. That's what everybody else does.
Right.
Oh man. So Taylor, like, man, we've been on here for a minute. And we've kind of come like the full gamut, like from your hunting background, your the gear, like you're not just full of shit and you only kill these deer because there's a lot of them. Now to bow tuning. So like all of that is covered like on your YouTube channel and stuff like that. So like where can people follow along with all the things that you're doing? And I mean, you do a lot of bow tuning and, lots of videos and stuff that are, not just sitting in a tree drinking coffee.
No, the most important thing people want to watch is my OnlyFans account, which is me in my basement, which,
it's with those assless first
leg. It's what all those boxes are really for, baby. My love for it. No, yeah, no, I put a ton of content out on YouTube. It's under Hunt Urban. So, you can always catch me there or on Instagram at Urban Bowman. But yeah, there is a lot of bow tuning and gear tinkering going on between tree climbing and deer killing. So if you're into tinkering, gear, or deer, it would be enjoyable for you to watch that, I'd imagine. Or not. Who knows?
Well, and it's not like the stuff that John and I do. I mean, he's got like a whole production crew, generally speaking, and then the stuff he does at his house is, like very high quality content. Like your video stuff is on point. It's probably on that anal side of it too. Is like
Yeah.
you've got it dialed in. So
Unfortunately for my poor brain, yeah, it's I don't know, man. I just a long time ago I felt like I'm just not gonna. If I do something, I'm gonna do it 110%. So that's how I end up with a bunch of like professional camera gear and lighting and crap, and audio, and dudes with cameras that know how to use them following me around. So that's always a good thing to have for sure.
well, awesome, man. I appreciate you taking the time to just catch up with us and do our annual drink beer and hang out. So
I know, man. Thank you for having me on. It's hard to believe that it's been, well, I guess 3 years, 2018, since I was last on. But I think you guys were one of the first podcasts I ever did. I think you might have been my second podcast ever. I'd have to go back and look at that, but I know I did. You guys are one of the first, so thanks for having me on again. Hopefully next year, or not even that long from now, we're together drinking beverages in person without masks on. That would be really nice.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it.
So until then, hopefully, if you guys want to come down and work on your target practice, the door's always open.
Yeah,
Well,
maybe give me some tuning tips.
Yeah, just bring an easier bow to tune and we'll be fine. But putting those little shims in like between the cam and where that axle comes through can be a really difficult process. I actually built a little 3D plastic clip to hold that in there when I was tuning that Elite, because I got so tired of like having my fat fingers be like numb from working on something you can't feel your fingertip and having it fall through the crack and be lost. So yeah, 3D printer to the rescue.
Oh man. Well, we'll definitely take you up on that.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me on, guys. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Yeah.